a clash of tradition and innovation as graphic novels challenge the boundaries of classic literature and learning. I'm Dr. Emily Sherwood. If you're interested in literacy and education from a global perspective, please like and subscribe. A woman looked at Allie with shock. "That's not literature," she said. "I don't believe in that, and I don't know any librarian that does. Why would you want your students to read that?" Allie had not asked about a particularly controversial book or about a book that had profanity or vulgarity. She just simply asked if the library had any graphic novels. Allie was an English for speakers of other language teachers in a rural school district, and she needed some books for her students that her students liked. And particularly at the high school level, the students couldn't read very well at that point in English, and they had asked for those. She had asked what the students wanted to read, and they said comic books, which is another name for graphic novels. But the librarian was just totally shocked that that would even be considered, because that wasn't a real book. Graphic novels are not real books, according to this librarian. And there are many people who would agree with her. Very well-respected people. This librarian was very well-respected. But the graphic novels are considered in some places just not literature, and it's considered kind of bad. There's this idea out there that there are good books, and those are old books for whatever reason, the classics, because those books generally took place, generally the United States or the United Kingdom, and those are the books that are usually read in English classes in the United States, like A Scarlet Letter, Lord of the Flies, 1984, Silas Marner. And basically all of these are very old books, and they're also very ethnocentric books. And what I mean by that is that these are books that that portray the American and the European culture, and they usually portray it very traditionally. So in these books, there's usually two-parent families. There's usually not any profanity, not any bad words. There's often not a lot of social issues in these books. If there are a lot of social issues, they're usually challenged. You hear a lot about Huckleberry Finn, which is a classic, because it has the N word, which is a profane word in the United States for black people. And it also discusses slavery, so that's challenged. But generally speaking, these books just show people with nice traditional families. They're all Christian, they're all white. And so those are considered the good books, or the canon, by many people in American society. That's not the way the world is now, though, at all. Over half of students are not white. They are of a different ethnicity in U.S. schools. And the statistics show that many children are being raised in families that are not traditional families. They're being raised by grandparents or with a single parent, or maybe the extended family where several families are in the same home. There's lots of different types of families now. And also in this country, we are facing a reading crisis. Only a third of students can read on grade level. Now, there are some people who say that that's a reason why they shouldn't read graphic novels, or comic books, as some people might call them. That they shouldn't read graphic novels for that reason, because they're dressed up comic books. And students need real books. They need complex text. That's something you heard a lot in the time of Common Core. Students need to read complex text at or above their grade level. But if a student can't read at that grade level, it does a student no good to read a complex text. It also makes books really boring, and reading really boring and really hard. Why would you want to read something really difficult like Silas Marner, which is one of the books in the canon? Why would you want to read about that if you can't read well? But graphic novels provide interest. So if a student can read about something they really like, there are lots of sports graphic novels. There's graphic novels about lots of fantasy graphic novels. That's a huge thing. Sports, fantasy. And the graphic novels also offer support. So students, if they can't read very well, can still look at the pictures. And they can use the pictures to help them. Again, this is not ideal. I totally agree that we should be having students that read better and can read on complex text. But sometimes they can't. And even for students who are higher level, who maybe are on grade level, they may just want to read for fun. And graphic novels are fun. If you think about it, do you want to sit around and read Anna Karenina one of the hardest books to read. It's over 1,000 pages. Do you want to read that just for fun all the time? Would you like to every month read that? No, of course not, because that's a challenge. It's not fun. And students need to be able to read for fun, and they need to associate reading with fun. So graphic novels in the literacy world are very well respected, and some of them are very complex. Some of them have chapters. Some of them have morals and themes. It's not just dressed up comic books. There are some very impressive graphic novels, and generally speaking, any book that's been a bestseller for teens will have a graphic novel. That's very general. There are some exceptions, like Harry Potter, I don't believe has a graphic novel, and that's unusual. But most of the books that are like bestsellers eventually will have a graphic novel with them. So if you have a student who's struggling and the class is reading a more advanced version of the book, you'll probably find a graphic novel. And that's true of classics too. There are classics that are graphic novels. Again, this should be a bridge. Students should never stay at their reading level, even students who are doing well. Ideally, a student accelerates. So that means the student at the beginning of the year is at a certain reading level. By October, November, that student has accelerated and is able to read at a higher level and should choose books at a higher level. And then in the winter, that student should be able to choose books at even a higher level. And then by spring, the student should be at least 1 year higher in reading level. But if the student is behind, if the student's a struggling reader, I have seen students go up 2, 3, 4 years in 1 year. And that's largely done through reading. And a student who's significantly struggling will not pick up a big fat book most of the time. A student will pick up a fun book that has pictures, like a graphic novel. That's kind of my disclaimer, is that I did write a graphic novel for children who are struggling, and it's very easy to read. And I'm going to put that in the description box if anyone has any interest in that. But that's all for today. Thank you so much, and until next time, keep learning.